Do you keep a fly swatter in every room though? Because that's the part that doesn't make sense to me, that I have to get up and go get one and to swat this fly when I could just open the door in the room. Like,
thank you.
Too much work.
But what if a fly comes in when you're trying to get the other one out?
That's the whole reason why, like, once you get flies, you just live with flies. I thought that was what the book Lord of the Flies was going to be about. It was not. I was incredibly disappointed.
Okay, I'm going to clear it up for you. You get one fly swatter per home. It's called the warm-up when you get up to find the fly swatter, and your fitness exercise is actually killing the fly, and that's it.
Okay. I can get behind that. Yeah.
That's the best argument for a fly swatter I've heard. I mean, I don't think it's the best, but it's the best one I've heard.
It's the
one
only
per
one
home makes the most sense too. Like,
I still don't believe you can catch flies. Like, I don't believe that's a thing that people do. I think the only time I've ever killed a fly is when these flies are like near death because they've been in my house for so long and have been without food. But like,
have you ever used
regular
fly
healthy
swatter,
fly?
It's easy with a fly swatter.
It's super easy.
The thing that it's not that the fly is
easy.
fast. It's like if you try and clap a fly, the air that pushes out of your hands blows the fly away. So it like you're assisting it and getting away from you clapping. But the fly swatter, it has a bunch of holes in it, so there's no wind brought up. All the wind passes through it, so it just smashes on the fly.
And it's also at the long end of this arm now, and so the fly doesn't even see it coming.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels like it's right in theory, but in truth, flies are just fast. Like,
yeah.
You know, as you have just said that you don't have a fly swatter, you don't believe in fly swatters, but the people who do have extensive experience with fly swatters are now telling you that it's not that hard to swat a fly with a fly swatter. I
think it's also a skill set. Like what the preamble to this conversation was about milking cows and churning butter and owning fly swatters and knowing how to use them. I believe that these things can work. I believe a sewing machine can work. I do not happen to possess the skills to operate one, right? Like, I'm not negating the existence of fly swatters or their effectiveness. I'm saying there is a skill set that's involved in being able to wield them effectively. And that skill set is not one that I think that just anybody with arms is all that you need to make that happen. I think that there's some additional skill and talent and training that goes into that.
I think it's learnable. I think it's like doing the dishes. It's like you get better at it as you go. For most people, you can do it.
I think it's like archery. Like, sure, I could
it's
probably.
Definitely much. It's much similar. It's much more similar to doing the dishes than it is to archery.
I do not believe you. that is the point at which we diverge. Yes, I absolutely agree that it is much closer to archery or some sort of like very difficult skill that is masterable but unlikely for you to master. Yes, all of the yous. That's where.
Wasn't this literally a part of the Karate Kid like movie?
But he's doing it with chopsticks. Of course, that's like impossible.
Oh,
which is the point, right?
Right, but with fly swatters,
like with a fly swatter, it's easy.
And that's probably why I believe that killing flies is impossible, because it's not a thing that real people do.
I've caught them with my hand before. You can do it with
Were they
your
dying?
hand.
Either that or you.
No.
Either that or you should have been the Karate Kid.
Gracie's a third degree, so maybe that's what my luck is that I'm fast enough to catch a fly.
See?
Bare hands. No chopsticks, though. I'm not Mr. Miyagi.
Flo, you've lived in many fly rich places.
Yes, and I just
Pennsylvania, Georgia. I'm pretty sure we have them here. You've not killed a fly?
No, not only ones that have been in the house long enough that they are dying of no food, and they are so slow that I can kill. Like when I can kill the fly, I'm like, wow. Well, I'm glad. I hope you lived a long life. I hope it was good to you.
This is like the weirdest. Like,
I don't kill healthy flies.
This is the weirdest like skill thing that I've ever heard. Like you are describing killing a fly with a fly swatter as if it's like doing a kickflip in a half pipe or something. Like it's like some like skill that requires like a lot of practice. It's really not like that. It's
this woman.
It's much closer to like
political mountains in the state of California.
Exactly.
I don't believe the flies can be. I don't believe flies are normally killable.
Like runners, just like killing a fly. That's your That's your
It's
block?
basically like a fast version of netting a fish.
Yeah, I've never done that either.
But you could.
I mean,
Now,
sure.
I think I see where she's coming from. Like, I get the idea of netting a fish, but in my head, it seems really hard.
Yeah.
It's just like
It doesn't
swatting a fly,
seem like
except
something
slow.
that just I can go out and do tomorrow, and it seems like something I'm gonna have to invest time in, like knitting or something else. Like I'm gonna have to learn how to do this.
I mean,
that just
to
doesn't
be
seem
fair,
like something that regular people would do.
well,
It seems like we just live with the flies.
we
or
have the
try to get them
internet
out.
now, so like we've abolished boredom, right? But like that didn't used to be the case before like the 90s. So
Hence why my great grandma could swat flies really well. Like, I assume she did that.
Like we've
because
gotten
she
to the
didn't
root
have a
of the
television.
problem.
It's like, I better go find some varmints to kill because I got nothing to do right now. Yeah.
Right.
And because I'm almost 50, I guess that means I can swat flies, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have
That puts you in that
developed and
age group.
honed the skill.
Yeah.
Okay, my superpower.
That and you're also the Flash apparently, because I think this is a superhuman skill.
I feel like in rural Wisconsin, we were killing flies a lot too, but also nothing to do there.
I just lived with them. I'd just be like, yeah, there are 4 flies in here, and I'm just doing my homework. Thanks.
And I've named them.
I've named them all, and I will kill them when they get old and are slow enough for me to catch. But until then,
mercy kill.
And this all started because I have a fly in this room that I've accepted it. I think there were 2 at some point, and I'm just like, yeah, that's.
Their lifespans are only a matter of days, right? So you just got to wait it out, let it get old, and then euthanize it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I love it.
Do you guys want to do an episode of this show?
Let's
I
do it.
Do an episode of the show.
All right.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Skylar.
No Shannon, but Flo.
Shannon is gone for the best reason. She's finally getting rid of that damn gallbladder.
She
finally got rid of it.
Yeah, it's gone.
Today.
That baby is gone.
Yes, that is the one eviction that we support. That gallbladder had to go. So good riddance.
It's been abolished.
Yeah.
The mitigated gall of Shannon Stevens. I'm so glad people laughed at that. That's my dad joke for the day.
I love it. Okay, I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
But we have 2 very special guests who I'm extremely excited about in two candidates for Sacramento. Not just one. 2 candidates for Sacramento City Unified School District. Nailah Pope-Harden of Area 4 and Lavinia Phillips of Area 7. How are you 2 doing?
Fine and dandy.
I'm super excited about this one. First of all, and I want to start this episode out. Nailah, I already told you this when I talked to you a couple days ago. I feel like I'm going to be a student of the show on this episode because personally, I know very little about school districts. So, and like just school boards and like, you know, I'm a 35-year-old guy who like doesn't have a kid. I think there's a lot of voters like me that don't know exactly how that engages someone like me. So I'm super excited to have you 2 on today. I feel like I might be leaning on Flo and Skylar today to lead the way with our interviewing. So just a heads up there, you 2. But why don't we start today? I think the first one, the biggie is maybe a little bit of a bio from each of you. Who you are, why it matters to you to run for the school board, and kind of what you bring to the table, if that makes sense. Who should go first? I feel like we should have flipped a coin before the show.
Are you mouthing me, Gracie? No. All right.
I forgot I was on camera.
I'll go. Nailah Pope-Harden, I have been organizing in the southeast corner of Sacramento for about the last 12 years, doing like really hyper neighborhood community issues, and engaged, but like I said, like super hyper local in my neighborhood, just trying to make it better. And about a year and a half ago, wait, no, let me remix that. So community organizer for the last 12 years in the southeast corner of Sacramento, mostly around environmental justice stuff, a lot of work around transportation issues, making the community walkable, cleaning the community up, fighting off marijuana ordinance, natural gas. The natural gas is like my neighborhood's big claim to fame. We stopped
putting in bike trails.
Putting in bike, I'm getting there, hold on. But we stopped a natural gas company from pumping natural gas under our neighborhood, and that's kind of where I started organizing. And my newest project is getting a bike trail along a creek that runs in our neighborhood, which you would think is just a no-brainer, but we are constantly having to fight and advocate for our well-being. So
funny how they just put the bike trails in the central city for some reason.
Yeah. Oh, it's disgusting almost how they treat our neighborhood compared to other neighborhoods. They're like giving them bike trails while we're like, hey, can we get a little bit of that?
Right.
But you came with money. I mean, I know we're not going to get off track, but like you came with money to do this, and still.
We fundraised $100,000 to do community engagement, and then we're able to secure a grant for $700,000. And the city was like, we don't know. We'll think about it. So all of this is going on. I was also living just my dandy, parentless, wanted to be the amazing aunt life, and then got pregnant with my son and said, okay, let me sit down and figure out what this new world looks like for me. And now he is a year and a half. And when I look at the school district, it's not something that I want him to go into. It's not a place where I feel like he'll be safe and affirmed, and he'll be able to fulfill all of, all his aspirations. It's just not that affirming for little Black boys. And so Michael Minnick, the incumbent, approached me about running. And after a few meetings and some convincing, I said, why not? Let's do this.
Very cool. So you're a product of the SCUSD school system, correct? What are your reflections in that regard?
So not only am I a product of SCUSD, I went to some of the best schools in the district. So I went to Camellia, Sutter, and West Campus, which have some of the best schools. And a few things were really apparent. Folks in my community didn't get to go to the same schools as me, and I was sitting in those schools. And I think one of the first times I was ever politicized was after we learned about slavery, and one of the girls at recess said to me, "I'm really sorry my family owned you." And me being like, oof, that's not what I learned at home. And being like, what? And taking it back to my parents and my mom had to go up to the school and let me teach you guys about how you should be teaching this stuff. And so it was a great education, but I just wasn't affirmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that background. And I didn't know, so the incumbent Michael Minnick, I don't know him very well, but I do know him somewhat. He approached you, so he will be leaving this position. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's got to be something that people in the school district probably are noticing that the incumbent is asking you to run.
I think they noticed that early on, and now they realize that I am not a Michael Minnick part 2.0, and so they have opinions and feelings about that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, how about we move to Lavinia? Tell us your story. Why are you running? Why does this matter to you, and kind of just a little bit of a bio too?
Well, Lavinia, Phillips, I am I guess you can call me a local activist. I live out here in Oak Park, and I'm the president of the Oak Park Neighborhood Association, and I'm a local social worker for child welfare. So I've been out in the streets for quite some time doing work that has not necessarily been appreciated. But before that, I was a preschool teacher, and I taught Head Start, and I worked for SCUSD as a para educator. So, you know, my experience in the schools is something that I like to say that I have some experience in the schools, but the greatest experience that I have did not come from my attendance. It came from my son's attendance. My son, just like Nailah, went to some really good schools. He graduated from West Campus, but to get him there and to get him through, just from the charter schools that I had him in, and you name it, I put him in it because he needed a good fit, and I wasn't finding them until we got to West. But you know, it's basically one of those situations where I had to fight tooth and nail to get him to everywhere where he needed to be. So elementary school, it was, well, wow, we should medicate your kid. I'm like, no, you shouldn't medicate my kid. Got to middle school, he won't stay in his desk. We're gonna have to suspend him. Got to high school, it was just like a breath of fresh air, being able to be someplace that was a happy medium, but he was one of a few Black kids in the school. So, you know, it seemed rather unfair that he got to go to a school that he left a lot of classmates behind when he left middle school. So, you know, I'm running because I really want to make sure that things in the district are working for parents and students. Parents need to be able to advocate for their children and not have to fight the way I had to get him the interventions that he needed. So, I mean, at this point, you know, I'm running, and if you want to, and I'll back up a little. If you want to look at how I came to be, it is one of those situations where, you know, I was contacted by Katie Valenzuela, and she's just like, hey, Gracie, this sounds like a really cool thing. You need to get out there. And I'm like, no, because that was my initial answer was, no, I'm not going to do this. I have better things to do with my life. So we didn't have a whole lot going on. But, you know, they did have to talk to me a few times and be like, no, Gracie, this is what could happen. And I thought about it enough, and I decided, hey, I guess I'm going to go ahead and do it. It was something that I had wanted to do before my son graduated. But again, my fight was for him in the school. So there was no time for me to do something like this. So now that I'm semi-child free with a 19-year-old home from college, yay. Now I'm running for office.
Wow. So, Nailah, I think you touched on this, and I think you can both speak deeply on this. A friend of mine, Chris Hooks, wrote a cover story for the Sacramento News and Review a while back, showing what was happening to students of color, specifically Black boys, Black students, in the school district, and how more so than other students that they were experiencing suspension, expulsion, things like that. And really this story was sort of beginning to open up this big picture to the general public of how the system is failing these kids. What does it mean to you as Black women running to represent this school district, and how do you hope to change these systemic problems?
Well, I think, can I go first?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, my brain says, ain't a damn thing changed. It's been like this for so long. And when you look at the makeup of your average run-of-the-mill board, you're like, yeah, this is probably why. Not like I'm blaming it all on white folks. I'm basically blaming it all on the way the system is set up. You know, we get a lot of Black boys shuttled into special education. You know what I mean? They're not tracked for college. There's all these different avenues that they seem to be taking that have nothing to do with fostering success for them. So, I mean, when you really get to the nitty gritty, it's disappointing that it's been going on for so long. And there have been studies, people have been watching, but we're not here to stare at the problem. We need to actually have some action, and it's time to do it in an urgent manner at this point. So that's where I'm coming from on this. It's been too damn long for the same stuff to go on, and it's time to change. And when I say change, it always sounds like, well, that's just platitudes. Gracie's just throwing stuff out there. And I'm like, if you lived it, then you can say it simply. If you have not lived it, then it's harder to explain. So, I mean, for me, as far as I'm concerned, we just got to get our numbers right. We got to remember who we're affecting when we're not paying attention to the resources that we refuse to deliver the way we need to. I ramble.
I love it.
This is the ramble show. Ramble.
We come here to ramble.
we did an opener about flies. Like, let's go with it. That was way more important than our opener about flies.
Yeah. You know, I look at my son now and I try and like imagine. Right now he likes to put a shirt over his head and like run headfirst into walls. And it is hilarious. And he likes to climb on things and jump on things. And I just have this paranoia about, okay, so when is this going to stop being cute to folks? When does he start getting suspended for this? Oh, like he's a curious little boy. When does his curiosity become a disruption, and why? And I think like in my day job, I do environmental justice work, and I talk a lot about, we're really comfortable with talking about injustice, and we can point out like what's wrong. We can point out the statistics that, you know, students of color are being suspended at an alarming rate, but we're having very few conversations about what justice for those students actually looks like, and like what we can do in the immediate. So I'm all for wanting to see restorative justice put into schools. I'm all for thinking that students should have more of a say about the type of discipline that's expected out of them. And I mean, and that varies to degrees that's age appropriate, of course, right? But like, we know that these structures are built on like white supremacist norms. And so like to think that our kids are gonna thrive in this is like, what are we doing? I don't want to set my son up for failure. And I think we need to have conversations about like, what is this expectation and why? How are we disciplining students? And some of this doesn't even take money, because that's what they want to throw out too. It's like, there's not enough money for counselors, but there's enough money to have a conversation. I'll give you my 2 cents. That's easy. So that's kind of just, I think the discipline issue is pretty much one of the number one issues of why I'm in the race, because I just look at my baby boy and I just want to preserve his innocence for as long as humanly possible. This world is ugly enough. The schools don't need to be ugly to him either.
Flo, do you have any questions? Skylar?
Yeah, I mean, I think you all touched on, you know, one of the main issues that has come up a lot in terms of discipline. And in this summer, you know, Sacramento Area Congregations Together, known as Sacramento ACT, was one of the main organizing groups, along with the Black Parallel School Board and many others who have been championing, you know, Sac City Unified School District for years to try to get rid of the school resource officers, known as SROs. And so that happened this summer. And so I'm really curious to know, you know, your thoughts on sort of next steps, because I know I've had conversations with Dr. Danielle Prince about it, and she was really instrumental in that work. And one of the things she said is that they're gone, but there's still a window for them to come back. And so you both are running. And so I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are just on school resource officers in general, especially given the phantom budget issues that Sac City Unified School District has had, and we can get into budget issues as well next. But I'm really curious about that particular issue, since we were talking about discipline.
I'll go first.
Either of you.
You know, what belongs at schools are students and teachers. I wrote down a list. It's about 30 things long that I would rather fund before we put one cop on campus. And I mean, that's down to like every child has breakfast and lunch, because that's going to help with behavior issues, making sure every child has a way to school and buses and adequate walking, way to walk to school. Of course, nurses, of course, counselors. There's like so many other things that we could be talking about that are fruitful, that are going to add to our students' education. But we're trying to spend money putting police officers on campus for arbitrary disciplinary issues. It doesn't add up to me.
And I think if you believe that having them in the schools or SROs is a good thing, then you need to get your life. And I'm hoping that my computer did not freeze because Nailah froze.
We can still hear you.
We can still hear you. We just can't see you.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, that's good then. So the SROs in the schools is not a good deal. But it was simple because we're looking at, again, the preschool to prison pipeline. And the last thing you want is for, the masses to get out of hand. And it's just, the more we put them in and the more we keep them in, I would not want them to come back. And I'm not quite sure exactly how loud I would have to be or how boisterous I would have to be to make sure that they don't come back. But the funding that we would spend on them needs to go definitely toward other resources. Nailah's list, I'm about to snag that because that seems to have everything that I may need on there.
It's our list, Gracie.
Yes, it is our list. There's so much that we could be doing instead of policing children that it's ridiculous that any board, any person would want to say, hey, let's bring the cops in and let's make sure that the schools run right. The law officers don't know anything about how school is run, so why are they there? They're there to enforce the law, and there shouldn't be that kind of law enforced on top of our children's heads. So, yeah, I'm keeping my curse words to myself on that one.
While we're talking about things we could fund, obviously we are all even recording this show remotely because of the COVID pandemic. And so there's been a big conversation, I think, happening nationwide around the digital divide, around parents being burned out, around the expectations for virtual learning, and about how our students are going to fare through all of this. And so I'm really curious to know your thoughts as you are running during a pandemic, and if successful, will be governing during a pandemic. And so what are your thoughts and priorities on how we can address and support the students in Sac City Unified during this time?
Yeah, I think to answer that, I don't have the answer. And I want to give everybody who would vote for me a lot of solace in saying, because I want to talk to you about what we collectively can come up with. I think we can't think of this one size fits all fix. We have to have multiple options that fit different needs. And it has to be encompassing of all the stakeholders involved. And we can't necessarily prioritize the students we prioritize, but after the students, we can't pit other stakeholders against each other. I think we really have to have conversations because some families need some type of childcare. My 18-month-old is in every meeting that I'm in, right? And so we need options for families, but and there's not one answer. And I don't think let Gracie answer, but I don't want to come with the solutions. I want to really work with community, work with folks to figure out what those solutions are.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with what Nailah said. Because I'm not a politician. I'm not getting into this because I want to move up and, be on the city council. Or I don't have higher expectations other than to make sure that our children are cared for at school. It's a pandemic. It is not business as usual. So anything that we have in our minds about how things should be run, we should take them out immediately, because it's one of those things where you can have a conversation with somebody, just like Nailah said, and they can have better suggestions than you ever had in your life about what they can do right now, because their experience is what's going to drive what's going to change with our kids in school right now. I don't want them back in school. I don't think they're going to be safe. I don't think we're ready. You know, everything that we hear, they're talking about, well, you know, we'll have small outbreaks. One outbreak, one child sick, it's too many to put them back into school. But I do know that for, you know, emotional purposes, social purposes, children do need to be in school. Our only issue is how are we going to get them safely there, and how are we going to get the kids that have been left behind, who have already been left behind, caught up. You know, I talked about my day one today. I thought about what I was going to do when I first got into office. And it was, you know, figure out exactly where that money that hasn't been allocated needs to go and put it there. And I you know, just thinking about Nailah's little boy, it's like he needs to start from the beginning. He's got what he needs at home. He goes to school. We work on his, you know, literacy. There are things that we can do in that preschool, kindergarten, first, second, third grade span of time where we can make significant changes in the child's life. And I think that we really need to bolster those programs.
Yeah.
But I mean, when it comes to keeping our kids safe in the schools, pandemic is a pandemic. We need to stop thinking like everything is all right and that you can just go back to the status quo and everything's going to be perfect. We're going to get some kids killed that way, and we're going to get some teachers killed and staff. So I don't think that it's a good idea for us to just do what everyone else is doing. Sacramento's numbers are going up anyway, so we need to calm down.
Yeah. Lavinia, you said in your response that you're not a politician. You definitely don't strike me as a politician. You strike me as a community member and a community activist. But that's not how Marcos Bertone of the Bee painted you in his write-up on this race. So can we dive a little bit into, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about in this school district, there is generally huge tension between the school board and the teachers association. Can we talk a little bit about where you two stand on this, this dynamic currently between, you know, Jessie Ryan, she's the head of the school board, her school board, and her deeply acrimonious relationship with the Sacramento teachers unions, and then where you land on that. And this question's for both of you, but we should probably start with you, Lavinia.
Sure. Marcos Bertone does not like me because his bestie is Jessie. And there's nothing that I can do about that. When we talk about me not being a politician, I mean that, with everything that I have, I am not, you know, what's the word for it? I'm not polished. I'm not, you know, well-versed in it. My delivery is not 100%. It's not all those things that you want in somebody who double speaks. And it just seems to me like I'm coming at you for real. I'm coming at you with my experience. I'm coming at you with what I believe need to be changes. And I want to work collaboratively with, you know, fellow board members. But, you know, there's a difference between people who are supporters of charter schools, those independent charter schools, people who are not necessarily fond of the unions are, you know, and I think a lot of that on, you know, maybe on Jessie's camp is something that needs to be looked at. I don't know her personally. There's been some conflict, but generally I have it in my head that sometimes statements are made by educators and staff that are for the children. They're there for the children. They're making their statements because they work with the children every day. This is what they do. And, you know, if you don't have the experience working in the schools and knowing how a lot of that works, it's hard to tell someone that they can't make a suggestion as to what could happen to better, you know, the time the kids are at the school. I get really ticked off when I have to think about the fact that words like acrimonious are used. Why are we all upset at one another? We're here to deal with children. We're here to deal with our young people. We're here to deal with them in times of crisis and in times of success. And the only thing that we need to focus on is the student's body. But it becomes personal. It's grown-ups who are like, well, you know what, you're anti-union, so we're not going to deal with you. And you're this person and you're pro-charter school, and we're not going to deal with you. And there's a lot of grown-ups not getting along together. And they forget where they're supposed to be focused on. And we should be focused on the children. I mean, I deal with crisis every single day at my job, but it's not something where I'm trying so hard to be angry with the grown-ups around me because the system isn't working, that we're not getting anything done. I don't have anything to say about Marcos Breton, though. The hell with
No, that's
him.
fine. I don't either.
I do. Which is, you know, he is someone who I think for many families in South Sac does not have a footing in. And for me, therefore, what he says is very irrelevant because he doesn't understand the issues that my community is facing. And so it is almost, I mean, not almost, it is such a disservice that he can give opinions about things that he knows nothing about, especially when we talk about like what's best for some of these communities. And, you know, get your money, Marcos, but, you know, that's not how you sustain the bee. So let's also, so in terms of like that relationship though, between like the school board, SCTA, it's just, it's like a lot of what Gracie said, it's really wild to me that we're letting ego and posturing get in the way of progress to the tunes of like hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawsuits because we can't sit around and have a conversation. I mean, we can't come to an agreement when like both of our futures are linked. Like it just makes no sense. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, what is the logical conclusion to these actions? That sounds like insanity to me. And I think on the board, we set the culture. And listen, as a Black woman, I don't plan on carrying nobody else's baggage. There is way too much baggage that I have on me. I don't plan on picking up none of this extra stuff. People need to have conversations and people need to be pushed to do that. People need to figure out, come to some type of consensus because I very much in the back of my head have this 4-year time clock that's going off for when my son steps into this district. And like, we have to get something figured out. And there's students right now though that are suffering because like Gracie said, adults can't come to a conclusion. It's really wild to me. And it's like a lot of posturing too. It's like, give it up.
Yeah. I mean, I apparently have more questions than I thought I would this episode. You know, my final personal question for you too is, you know, you get into office, into, you know, this is a difficult time for this district, and this does take some nuance, and both of you are speaking to the fact that it's like, hey, we all have the same goal here. You get into this office. What do you do? What's your look? What's your direction the first 100 days to move beyond this old storyline of the board claiming there's no money, demanding the teachers take less money, and then suddenly this money appears and now nobody trusts the board? How do you move beyond all of this drama? I'm a journalist. I get press releases from the school board all the time. I don't see a press releases this aggressive from anybody else in the city, and it's coming from a school board.
Right.
So how do we move forward from where we are today? And what is your vision for the school district in that regard?
We need folks who can count. I mean, if it comes down to, you know, the folks who are running the numbers to provide to the budget, and to provide, to running the numbers to provide to the board so that we can balance the budget. We're not doing that. And I guess what do we have hidden now? Maybe $100 million that's, socked away into books and services, things that haven't been allocated, earmarked for anything that they're going to spend near the end of the year. And if parents had time, and energy to be able to follow what was happening on the board, they would all be speaking their mind about it. But there are so many things that may happen without everyone knowing what's happening that it's easier just to shove money away. And I say it every time. I'm like, every time we talk about this budget, it's like they're saving for a rainy day. But it's raining. It's already raining. It's raining on our kids, and we're not able to take care of them because we're saving for what we think is the inevitable, but nothing. We're there already. And we've been here for the last 10 years since Mr. McCarty did his thesis on some other stuff. Everybody is trying to fix a problem by saving up, but they're not paying attention to the fact that we have an actual problem right now and have had one that we need to get to work on. So, I mean, my first 100 days are going to be the board's first 100 days. I don't have any ideas that I'm going to come in and say, hey, you guys, we're all going to do this. I'm going to be your next president. No, I don't think so. But what's important to me is that we find that money, we put that money in the right place, we spend down to where we can spend down to. And there's so many, there's intricacies of the budget that, are somewhat hard to understand. There are funds that are very specific that go to very specific items, and there are some that are, not as specific. I think they're called unrestricted. So it's like we have to make sure that we know where our money is going. If we lived in a home with 6 or 7 people and we did our home budget like this, we would be in trouble. So, we got to get back to basics. We got to get our numbers straight, and then we can decide where we're going to put that money. And it's going to go somewhere, and most likely it's going to go to our students. Not that hard. Find the money, put it where it belongs, keep it moving.
Yeah. Nailah?
Yeah, I like all of that. I will say what I most see myself doing is forcing conversations to happen in public. The organizer in me, that's one of the most annoying parts about the current school board, is that there's all these like, oh, we discussed it in a room. No, I need to see you grapple with it. As your constituent, I deserve that. If you're going to make a tough decision, you owe me why, because I can understand why tough decisions and how tough decisions are made, but I need to see where you're making that decision. I need to learn your thought process. And I want to model that. Where I can say, like, I'm really uncomfortable with this and this is why, but I'm leaning towards this. I so hope and can't wait for the moment where like I'm being organized, right? And folks are like, what do they call it? See, this is bad. Board member Pope-Harden, you need to listen to the community. I'm all ears, baby. What you want to say? Like, we need to have these conversations in public. We need to be engaging community input. I think so much of the decisions that are happening behind closed doors leave folks frustrated on what's happening. And there's so much like mystery and confusion, and people can make their own narratives because we're not having these conversations out loud. So that's what it is. I also plan on asking really simple questions. Well, why? Well, I need you to explain it to me. Break it all the way down. What does this pay for? Because I think a lot of us are running on assumptions on where money in our budget is going and why. And we have, and you can see it at all levels of government, where we have folks that are empowered and then just run, and then boards get the little fact sheet that says, this is how we think you should vote. And they're like, okay, green light, let's go. But what I know is green lighting, let's go, has historically never benefited my community. So if I need to be a yellow light or a red light, that's what I'm willing to do. I have daycare that's gonna that lasts all night. So, let's do it. If we have to have these long board meetings where we hammer it out, then let's go.
I'm really curious, Nailah, because you brought up a good point about, this parental engagement, how excited you are to be, organized. And, and Gracie, you're the president of OPNA. Nailah, you're, an environmental justice advocate. And part of the reason why the Black Parallel School Board exists is because there was a feeling that they couldn't get what they needed out of the school board, right? And so I'm really curious to know sort of what we talked about SCTA and, sort of engagement there, but like, what is your planned engagement for these groups that exist around education? And in particular, what do you see as, as any additional role that you have to play on the school board as someone, who understands the importance of those and is raising it beyond just, being sort of the yellow light or the red light? I love that.
I just want to say for listeners, you've been hearing Gracie a lot. That is Lavinia. So
sorry.
if you see Lavinia on a ballot, we're discussing Gracie.
Yes.
So connect those two. Keep going,
Yes.
you two.
Lavinia Grace Phillips.
That is I, yes.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Gracie.
Mm-mm.
No, you go ahead.
Mm-mm. Oh, okay. Well, I think the biggest thing okay. I have personal issues, not really personal issues. I have some concerns with regard to the Black elite in Sacramento. So I understand we have the Black Parallel School Board, fantastic. There's the NAACP, there's the Urban League, there's all these people who are interested in having a conversation. And it still comes down to, they want our ear. They want to be able to speak to people on the board and have our ear, and we need to be able to listen. And everyone has their idea about what they want to suggest to the board, because the board is truly a government and pretty much an independent government. So what's most important, I believe, is just taking the time and energy to listen to what the other groups are saying, because they've been watching us. And if they've been watching us and paying attention to all that's going on, chances are pretty good that they're going to take their time and energy to tell us what we need to hear. So in case I didn't come out quite right, let me try that again. Saying to listen, yeah, let me say it in English. Basically, these folks have been watching us. They know what we do. They know what we haven't done. They have complaints. They have concerns, and we should allow them to be heard. That's my thought. But I do have issues with some of the elitism that takes place, and maybe it's just what I'm seeing right now, because it's a bit of a contentious race between me and Miss Ryan. And everyone's taking sides, and people are saying things that aren't that kind to one another. But it feels, it's hurtful to me when my own people turn against me because of the things that they've said, and I won't go into that, but it's kind of hurtful. So we all got to stick together. We all got to respect that we're all human beings. So it's just a matter of time to see what happens on election day, where we're going to go forward.
Well, I mean, before you jump in, Nailah, I do think that to speak to your race and to not be in the interviewer seat, I will say, there's been a lot of contention around, and you said early on that you're not a politician, right? You're a social worker, and you're a person in the community who's trying to, figure these things out. And I have seen and heard a lot of criticism of Jessie because she talks this good, equity game and about what our students need, but she could have been the deciding vote over a year ago to get the school resource officers out of the schools, and she wasn't. And so Jessie and I serve on the Measure U Community Advisory Committee together, and our first sort of run-in just before we were both appointed was a very sternly worded letter that I sent to her about how disappointed I was that she chose the status quo and she chose, white privilege over the bodies of, Black and brown students who are disproportionately harmed by their presence on campus. And she felt like that was a personal attack. And I was like, no, I'm specifically talking about the impact of your policy decision on the people who live in this community. And then like several weeks later, we were both appointed to Measure U, and I was like, well, this is going to be awkward, right? And it actually ended up not
allow
being.
me to reintroduce myself.
Right, right. And I was like, well, here we are, right? And it actually wasn't as awkward as I thought it was going to be, but that stands out to me because I think when we're having conversations about your race, you know, there is this feeling of, you know, Jessie also has Black children, and so do you, right? And so, you know, she has a right and she lives this experience every day. But I go back to that vote because I think any person who, you know, despite where you may feel about, you know, defunding police, or despite how you may feel about public safety in general, the point at which you think the best thing to do in a city that may or may not have enough money to be able to pay for basic things is to preserve a contract with law enforcement to be in our schools, says to me, you've missed any equity conversation that's ever happened. And so that to me just stands out as something that's so wrong-headed that I usually allow people to have grace to be able to, you know, make better decisions in the future. But they had already had so much education to that point, and Jessie already considered herself to be an equity champion, that to me is just a vote that you kind of can't come back from. And I certainly don't want somebody sort of licking their finger and seeing which way the wind blows.
Right.
And in the middle of a pandemic, after 500 people send you letters and you have to sit there for multiple hours listening to public comment, you finally can be persuaded not to uphold white supremacy and the status quo. Like, that's not leadership to me. And so I, you know, just on a personal note, like, I'm really glad you're running, Gracie. I get that you're not a politician. I think sometimes it's nice to have people in who don't understand things because the community can relate to you and you can learn together. I think the basics, though, are the things that you understand, which is putting kids first, understanding equity, making sure things are transparent. And that's the kind of thing that I look for in a candidate, irrespective of how polished they are. So I'm really hoping that that comes through to a lot of the listeners today and a lot of the voters in your district. I used to live in District 7 and now I'm in 4. So luckily I get to at least vote for one of the people on here tonight. But I think that I really do think that that's, you know, an important thing to call out is, you know, that was a missed opportunity in the most egregious of ways, and it was intentional. And there are just, you know, and so for a year, our babies had to be in school once again with these police officers funding things instead of the things that should have been funded.
Yeah. Nailah, let's get some time for you to answer Flo's question too.
Yeah, but I want to piggyback off of that a little bit.
Okay.
So I do, and I'm going to try and loop it around because I'm working on my politician in the pivot. So let me dance. I do environmental justice and equity work, right? And a lot of the time, like I said earlier, right, we talk about and framing it as injustice, but we rarely want to have conversations about what justice actually looks like. And so I welcome and look forward to the time where we can actually start having conversations on the board about, like, actually, that's not what equity is. Equity champions do X, Y, and Z. This is what, like, let's be equity champions together. Let's, like, you know, actually advance for all students. So I'm excited that these conversations, like, I hope I can bring those type of conversations more in the public. But in terms of, like, how to engage, I think it is, when I used to organize, right, I used to have next to my computer a list of different groups. So, like, when I was, like, making or thinking of a new policy or advocating, I'd say, like, let me run it by disability rights advocates, so I'm making sure that I don't, like, say something that's completely off-putting. You know, like in South Sac, in my area, there's a large Southeast Asian population. So I'm like, hey, is this, like, culturally relevant to you guys if I say in South Sac, you know, we don't want X, Y, and Z? Like, you have to be that intentional until it's ingrained. Yeah. And so I've been building out the list of stakeholders, the list of groups that are involved, groups that I agree with, groups that I don't, because you don't get it better by having low information. And so I welcome that. And just building out that list and saying, like, shooting an email, hey, what are your thoughts? I also floated the idea of possibly doing, like, a podcast, because I still have a lot to learn. How do I have these conversations out loud? How do we all learn together? Because so much of what's going on is misinformation. And so I think, yeah, I just want to be really intentional about making sure who I'm talking to and making sure that it's a large, wide, diverse group of folks.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. I want to get around to a little thing that Flo's been doing for the end of this episode, but I first wanted to open it up to both of you. If there's any final thought that you want to let our listeners know about, any final thought on these final days in the race that you're both, in, let's hear it.
Come on, Nailah.
I'd like to end with a little song. Wait in the. I'm joking. Okay.
I was like, okay, be real spiritual. I'm not mad at it.
This little light of mine. All right, now I'm gonna let it. No. I think what this is. Let me think on this for a second. Gracie, you gotta go. You gotta go on this one.
Oh man, I'm not coming. Well, you know what? We got 5 more days. I think I actually sang it this morning on a video that we have 5 more days until the election. All I want is for people to get out there and vote. Voting local, making sure that you know what you're voting about, what you're voting for. I don't have a word to say about, am I excited to be in this race? Absolutely. Am I excited about winning? Yeah, absolutely. But I think that what's most important is that we do what we can for the reasons why we're here. And those are, again, the reasons why we're here is for the children. I'm running because I want to. I'm not a purchased woman. I have not been bought by the unions. And I think that they have figured that out, that, oh, Gracie's one of those, or Lavinia is one of those people. I literally am like, everyone wants to hear somebody question other people that they don't agree with. And I'm like, I will question you too. So it's not like I'm in a position where I'm being told what to ask, where I'm being told how to follow, told how to vote. That's not how this works. What they have is they really need quality leadership and they need quality candidates. And what they got was me. And I will do my best if and when elected. I'm just not hyper-focused on so much the running of, but just the end result for our kids. That's the most important thing for me. Vote Gracie, Lavinia Phillips. I've been Gracie my whole life, so it's just like, they're like, well, you're registered as Lavinia Grace Phillips. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but no one knows who that is.
Yeah,
and
well, before
now,
the show, before the episode, both you all were like, oh yeah, just say Lavinia Phillips. And I was like, okay. And then all I heard the entire damn episode was Gracie.
I don't even know who Lavinia is. I mean, you're in my phone as Lavinia, and every time I get ready to like send you a text or call, I always go GRA. Dang it, that's not her. Where is she? Right?
Yeah. It's an odd set of circumstances, but it is what it is. I have homemade signs. People have done homemade signs. Go Gracie, SCUSD.
Love
so
it.
I'm like, okay, you got this.
I will end with, I feel, don't get me wrong, I'm excited. This is important. I want to win, but I have been trying to just really root myself in. I did community work on November 3rd, 2008, and I'm going to be doing it in 2028. Like, this is what I do, and all we're deciding is where I'm going to be advocating from, what seat I'm going to have in this boardroom. And so, I think that there's a lot of good discussions that have come out of this. I think no matter who is elected, if you vote for me, vote for my opponent, we need to be pushed. We're not perfect people. And our goal is to be the voice of the people, And so you got to tell us what to say. We can't be your voice if we don't know what to say.
Ooh, I like that. The activist telling you to activist her. That's cool. You both, this has been fantastic, and I'm so thankful that you came on to talk with us. We'll circle around for another big thank you in a minute here, but I wanted to move on for just a couple minutes to something that happened here in Sacramento City Council this week. That Flo, I mean, has been. Obviously there have been countless people that have been a part of this, but Flo, you were one central person as well. This change to our city's definition of public safety, the first ever in the United States. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So as part of the All Children Thrive initiative that public health advocates and UCLA are working on, we developed a public safety resolution that redefines public safety as more than just police, fire, and emergency services, but that actually looks at youth preventive services. And part of the resolution acknowledges the harm that our institutions have caused to communities that create the conditions that make people unsafe. And we actually, quote young people in it and the ways in which they describe feeling unsafe, young people from across the Sacramento region. And they were really instrumental as part of the Sac Kids First Coalition to, advocate for, to meet with every single city council member and the mayor, to create amazing videos online and to really just champion this. And we took a lot of the definitions from the research that's been happening for decades around what safety is, around what's necessary, and really thinking about what it looks like to make investments, what things are needed to be able to evaluate those investments, and how we can do this well. And so it really sets the city up to have a really strong framework for considering, its budgets, considering its, time investments, considering the ways that it operates. And so we're really excited. This is now the first in the nation, city to be able to define safety in this way. And we already have a lot of interest from other cities to be able to do something similar. So we're going to be hard at work for for a while now, trying to help many other cities throughout the state of California to do the same thing. So it's nice sometimes when you can do that, and to get a 9-0, vote out of this city council, I think was really surprising. I was shocked that no one, balked at some of the language that was in there, because it's pretty strong language. And so I don't know if, I don't know if we just eked out a win by surprise. I don't know if there was magic. I don't know what was going on Tuesday, but I'm really thankful for it and looking forward to next steps.
I love it.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that that looks back at your show on our friend Scott Syfax's show on Studio Sacramento, where you and Angelique and Daryl were arguing about a number of things that it just kind of, I don't know, it makes me think about kind of all the work you, Skylar, Shannon, like myself on the show, we don't hide the fact that we are police abolitionists, right? And everyone we have on the show have had over the summer, they shared similar views on that when it was very much not popular to have those views. It's sort of astounding to see you and the advocates alongside you, those folks who've been on the show, to have come forward with a win like this. And I think for listeners, like, maybe it doesn't feel like that much of a win to have a redefinition of public safety to also mean prevention. But this could be the first step down a path towards real systemic change that changes how cities spend their money, which can save fucking lives. And I'm just so excited to see all of the work you've been doing come to fruition.
Yeah, it's been a hard year. We really needed a win. So it was very galvanizing to the team. And I think to a lot of folks, in the community to be able to see something like this happen. So thank you to everyone who championed, who signed on, who called in, who, retweeted and reposted about it. You were absolutely instrumental in making this happen. None of this happens because of one person or because of one organization. It's usually when we come together collectively. And so I'm just so thankful for all of that.
Yeah. And just a point, Daryl, the mayor, Kaka, said on Scott's show that he doesn't, he didn't say that on Scott's show, but he said many times that he's not going to try to, quote unquote, defund the police in any regard. But he has to now turn to something like this, which I think, I don't know if it's political will or what. I think Daryl is very much a flag in the wind. So I think perhaps that is what's happening here. But that's astounding to me. He's got Angelique behind him basically on everything he does right now. The reason for that, folks, is because she's going to be gunning for Senator Pan's seat, and she's really going to want Darrell Steinberg's endorsement. So she's going to do anything he says. So I think part of the fact that the most cop-friendly city council member was behind this is probably to do with this political, chess as well. But to me, again, given the time, given the tenor of the city council over the last 6 months, Flo, who else? D'Angelo, everybody.
Getty, Monica, Sophia. It was, like I said, it's just a real team effort.
This is all of you really, really twisting the arm of the city council that didn't want to do this for so long. And fucking people power, man. And maybe I sound a little too cheerleader-y here, but I can't stress it enough that activism works, and sometimes activism works better than casting a ballot once every 2 years. And that was it in action, and it's beautiful, and I'm so happy for all of you.
Yeah, now we look forward to budget season.
I think it's absolutely appropriate to celebrate your W's, as anybody who, is in this kind of this line or is adjacent to it knows, W's are few and far between, so I think it really is super important to celebrate them when you get them, Yeah, I don't know. This is really inspiring to me, and I'm just as surprised as anybody, and I don't know. I'm really, really happy about this. This is fantastic news. So,
Yeah, we're so thankful. And thanks also to, Councilmember Shanier's office. They were the ones who carried this for us and really put a lot of sweat equity into making sure that it got through. So, Jay knows he and I don't always agree on a lot of things. But I always try to be a person who says thank you when we are in agreement, and when we can get something done, I like to say thank you. So
for sure.
Jay, I will nod at you with a stern look on my face, but I won't thank you. But no, okay, no, Flo, I just really wanted to address that, and so that's awesome. And to our 2 school district candidates, Nailah, Gracie, can I Lavinia, whatever. It was such a joy having you on, and I think the other hosts will tell you I was nervous to have you 2 on, because I'm I don't know school districts, I don't know what to talk about, I don't know how this works, but I'm really glad we did, and you're fighting such an important fight, so thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For sure. Well, Dave, speaking of fighting really important fights, I spend a ton of time on Twitter. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. So, you know, as the days go on, I'm scrolling through Twitter, drudging up perfect takes as I do. But here's the rub, is that you get to a point where you've kind of read all of the perfect takes. You're left with the dregs, basically, like the whack takes, the hot takes. Yeah, and it won't do for me, because at this point I'm too used to processing perfect takes. I can't go backwards. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I thought I would come on the show and ask you about it to see if you know of like a better way to find perfect takes, so that I can get back to consuming the perfect takes that I'm used to instead of the whack takes.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm glad you asked, because I do know of a place.
Wonderful.
And these takes in this place are so perfect. There are no dregs. They are not that hot. They're perfectly
appropriately temperatured take.
Appropriately for take consumption, just
right.
pristinely temperatured. It's basically it's effectively it's an Asti region champagne of takes.
This is exactly what I was looking for. I'm so glad I asked you.
And this place is called voicesrivercity.com. We've been doing, there's our little koozie. Oh, by the way, my friend who's been asking me on Twitter where to get the koozie, I got it. I'll message you back. Sorry. Voicesrivercity.com has been around for a little over 3 years. We started out as a news and arts coverage space. We nailed it back then. We will nail it again in the soon future. But we really have been trying to uplift the voices in the community. We've also been trying to follow the money in the region. Our SAC Follows the Money project does just that, on where money is going to politicians here in Sacramento. We've hosted many a essay, many a truth to power op-ed. We've got one coming out, I believe, pretty soon. I won't share what it's about yet, but it's pretty exciting. And then our current iteration, of course, our most recent focus. Is this dog telling me? Whose dog is that? Flo, is that Simi?
That's
Simi.
Simi.
He's basically the fifth member of the show at this point.
Yeah, basically. You just bring him up. Okay. I've totally lost track of my thought. Anyway, we've the podcast is our current focus these days, and we've got a lot of really cool people coming on. You know, cool people running for school board who really care about the community and who aren't, you know, trying to dive into the mess that's been happening in the last 2 years at the school board. They do need change at this school district. But we also, you know, we've had all sorts of folks on. We've had all sorts of candidates on. I think we've had now 2 Bernie endorsed candidates on this year. That's kind of fun. And yeah, so that's who we are, what we are. If you want to support us, we are at patreon.com/voicesrivercity. We put out 2 episodes a week. We're so good. We're so cool. You should just like throw down $5 a month. That's $5. That's a beer at the bar you're not going to every month. So just like help us out, right? We all on social media, Facebook, we are Voices River City, Twitter and Instagram at Voices River City. The Instagram is funny as hell. That's all Skylar. I'm not that funny. And then we are also on YouTube. You can watch our pretty little faces as we talk about the issues of the day. We are getting on YouTube over 1,000 views a month. We've got over, I don't know how many subscribers now, but like, it's funny, our YouTube is catching up to our downloads on the podcast apps. So that's kind of exciting. But anyway, that's all the things we do. Is there anything else I missed? I guess I'm on Twitter at Kempa, YUKNOWKEMPA.
You can find me at Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4, YOU.
And I am at Flojaune, FLOJAUNE.
And you can find Shannon at Shan ND Stevens. She's
having Nailah on.
I know, this is great.
She knows everything.
Gracie, Nailah, where can we find you online? Where can we subscribe to get your perfect takes that you're putting up?
Wow. I think where am I? I'm on Facebook, Lavinia Grace Phillips for School Board dot whatever Facebook's thing is, and I'm also at .org. So Lavinia Grace Phillips for School Board at .org, not at, but dot.
Got it.
Man, I'm glad you guys can edit this because I'm like, blah, 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 but yeah,
I'm not editing this part at all.
No, this is perfect.
Oh, great.
No, I'm putting it in just like this.
I do my little gentrification station updates on that, so that's where
Gentrification station. I love it. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't love it, but I love the name.
I love the name.
Yeah, it's cool.
Funny. I am doing school board stuff on Facebook at Nailah, NAILAH, the number 4, SCUSD. But I also have a Twitter, and honestly, I really just want to be Twitter famous so I can drop all of this stuff and be a keyboard warrior. So you can find me on Twitter at Nailah PH, NAILAHPH.
Another public health warrior.
No, Pope-Harden.
Oh, damn it. I thought you were like another Flo here all of a sudden. Like,
I mean, we count the environmental justice people as public health.
That's true.
Absolutely.
It can be both.
Yeah.
Well, you two, thank you so much again for coming on the show. It was such a pleasure. And like kind of like Dave, this is not an area that I know very much about. So it was a real pleasure and an education getting to listen to you two, and I appreciate it. Yeah, I think our listeners are going to be really happy to hear it too.
Thank you so much.
Flo, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I am really thankful that both of you were available to come on tonight. It's not, we talk about the importance of politics beyond just representation, but representation still matters. And so it's great to be able to see 2 Black women running for school board, especially given that it's one of the institutions we have that is most rife with, racism and white supremacy, and definitely needs, our voices and perspectives, especially in leadership. So I'm just grateful that you both were willing to, serve in this way and bring your perspectives. And I'm really, hoping that come November 4th, we'll get some good news about how this all has worked out for you. So
yeah. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. We're sending you
Thank
the voices luck your way. So
Yeah, it always works.
got Katie in.
I did get Katie in. That's true. Hopefully it gets Maya in too. Speaking of Bernie endorsed candidates.
Yeah.
Well, to all the listeners out there, thank you so much for listening. We love and appreciate all of you, and we want you to stay safe.
Stay sane.
stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from me.
All right.
We should have let Nailah do some part of that.
We should have.
She knew it so
oh my
well.
God.
No joke. I prepared Stay Smart just in case.
Oh.
Well, we got to do it again then.
No,
Hang on.
yeah.
Scooby-Doo.
Where we do say smart instead of stay sane?
Let's do
She's
smart
gonna do-
instead of sane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're after me then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you go number
so
2.
nervous.
Nailah.
I'm not
Yeah.
ready, guys. Okay, let me
You're
stand up.
ready. You're ready. You're ready. You're ready. You're ready.
All right.
Now, we love you. We love and appreciate you, and we want you to stay safe.
Oh, shit.
You really are Shannon tonight. You really are Shannon. Because Shannon does this all the time.
Shannon does this every episode too. It's perfect.
Perfect.
She's like, I'm so excited. Okay, Nailah.
Yeah, you're number two.
Got it.
One more time. One more time.
Okay.
All right, one more time. To all of our listeners, thank you so much for listening to the show. We want you to know that we love and appreciate all of you, and we want you to stay safe.
Flo's not helping. They're not helping Flo.
It's so sweet. This is the cutest thing that has ever happened during the closing. Oh my gosh.
This is fangirl. This is fangirl material.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much.
So embarrassed. Stay
You're
smart.
gonna nail this. You got
Stay
it.
healthy. Okay. Stay healthy.
No, she's stay. What are you?
I'm
Stay
saying
smart.
stay smart.
He's gonna say stay smart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay
Okay.
smart. Got it.
Got it.
Stay healthy.
No, we're gonna do all of them at once.
Yeah,
right?
we gotta go.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do
the
the let's do the thing. Yeah, okay, one more time. Yeah, all
I
right.
want to
So
edit this that way. Yeah.
to all of our dear listeners, we want you to know that we love and appreciate all of you, and we want you to stay safe.
Stay smart.
Stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from me.
Hell yeah, there it is.
You
There
put
it
extra
is.
steak on it that time, Dave. Yeah. Yes.